Jack Keane went on television and said Iran miscalculated badly on Trump, that it is now blowing up in Iran's face, that American pressure has exposed Iran's weakness, and that the IRGC's internal divisions prove the strategy is collapsing. I want to respond to that directly because I think General Keane has it completely backwards. And I want to explain why, not with rhetoric, but with specific facts that the general either does not know or has chosen not to mention. Let me start with the central claim: Iran miscalculated badly. Let us examine what miscalculation would actually look like versus what has actually happened. What miscalculation would look like: Iran's oil exports would have collapsed under the blockade. Iran's currency would have entered free fall. Iran's government would have shown signs of imminent political collapse.
Iran's negotiating position would have deteriorated from its pre-war stance, and Iran's foreign minister would be in Washington, not Moscow, asking for terms. What actually happened: Iran's oil exports in March 2026 were higher than before the war began. China's shadow fleet, CIPS payment system, and strategic reserves kept Iran's economic arteries open throughout 62 days of the most intensive American blockade attempted in the modern era. Iran's foreign minister flew to Islamabad, then Muscat to meet Oman's Sultan, then Moscow, then back to Islamabad, conducting a four-stop diplomatic offensive that loaded every channel simultaneously with Iran's terms. And Russia, not America, holds the solution to the deal's most technically difficult problem because America rejected it and Iran flew to Moscow to keep it alive. That is not miscalculation. That is strategic execution under conditions designed to look like chaos. General Keane's first claim: the IRGC removing Ghalibaf proves Iran's leadership is fractured. Let me explain what the Ghalibaf situation actually demonstrates. The IRGC removed Ghalibaf, a former IRGC commander himself, from his negotiating role because he was willing to include the nuclear question in talks with America. The IRGC's institutional position is that the nuclear program is non-negotiable. So the IRGC applied its veto. General Keane interprets this as chaos. I interpret it as the IRGC functioning exactly as it was designed to function. The IRGC has maintained a consistent institutional position for 40 years. America cannot be trusted. Engagement is a trap. Resistance is the only viable posture. Every American escalation in this conflict, every bomb, every seized ship, every shoot to kill order, every Truth Social post claiming Iran has agreed to things it has not agreed to, confirms the IRGC's institutional narrative. When America's behavior confirms the IRGC's warnings, the IRGC's internal political position strengthens. When the IRGC's internal political position strengthens, moderates lose the argument for compromise. When moderates lose the argument, Ghalibaf gets removed. When Ghalibaf gets removed, General Keane goes on television and says Iran miscalculated. But who created the conditions for Ghalibaf's removal? American escalation did. The harder America pressed, the stronger the IRGC's argument became. General Keane is pointing at the symptom of American pressure and calling it evidence of Iranian miscalculation. It is evidence of the opposite. General Keane's second claim: the blockade is working. The blockade turned back 37 ships, 2 carrier groups, 19 warships, the most intensive naval enforcement operation America has run in the modern era, and Iran's oil exports in March 2026 exceeded pre-war levels. How is that possible? Because China built over the preceding decade the exact infrastructure designed to make American blockades economically ineffective against Iran. The shadow fleet that moves Iranian crude without AIS transponders, the CIPS payment system that processes Iranian oil revenue in yuan outside SWIFT, the 1.2 billion barrel strategic reserve that insulated Chinese markets from the energy shock. China's CIPS processed a single-day record of 1.22 trillion yuan, $179 billion during this conflict. The blockade is not working. The blockade has reached its ceiling. Above that ceiling is everything China built during the decade of quiet. General Keane is describing the blockade's existence as evidence of its effectiveness. A blockade that fails to reduce the target country's oil exports is not working. regardless of how many ships are deployed. General Keane's third claim, America has all the cards. This is Trump's phrase, which General Keane appears to endorse. Let me inventory the cards. America's cards, military hardware, a blockade that Chinese tankers cross, the threat of resumed strikes on infrastructure, and the demand that Iran's enriched uranium leave Iranian soil under conditions Iran considers capitulation. Iran's cards, physical control of the northern shore of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil moves. A nuclear stockpile American intelligence says could reach weapons grade in weeks. The IRGC's operational independence from the diplomatic track, meaning even a signed deal can be undermined by the institution that actually controls Hormuz. China's full economic support architecture running throughout the conflict. Russia's uranium custodianship offer, which America rejected and which remains the only available solution to the deal's most technically necessary problem, and the Oman-backed channel, the channel through which every significant Iran-America agreement has been built since 2013, now loaded with Iran's improved offer. America has military cards. Iran has geographic, economic, diplomatic, and technical cards. The military cards produce pressure, the other cards produce outcomes. A deal requires outcomes, not pressure. General Keane is counting the pressure cards and calling them all the cards. What General Keane is not mentioning, he is not mentioning that Trump rejected Russia's uranium custodianship offer, the only available solution to the deal's most technically difficult problem, because he did not want Russia to gain leverage. He is not mentioning that Iran sent a much better proposal within 10 minutes of Trump canceling the Pakistan trip, which Trump himself confirmed to reporters. He is not mentioning that Araghchi flew to Muscat and met Oman's Sultan Haitham, the same channel that produced the 2013 preliminary JCPOA framework, and loaded it with Iran's improved offer. He is not mentioning that China, Russia, and Iran held a trilateral IAEA meeting on April 24th, building a nuclear framework that America is not part of. He is not mentioning any of this because none of it fits the narrative that Iran miscalculated badly and it is blowing up in Iran's face. The actual miscalculation in this conflict, America miscalculated that maximum pressure would produce Iranian capitulation. The same theory failed in 2018 when Trump walked out of the JCPOA and reimposed maximum pressure sanctions. Iran did not capitulate then. Iran accelerated its nuclear program instead. The IRGC said, "We told you America cannot be trusted." The moderates who argued for the JCPOA lost the internal argument. Enrichment resumed. The same dynamic is playing out now, 62 days into a war. Maximum pressure is strengthening the IRGC's internal position, not weakening it. Every American escalation gives the IRGC more evidence for its core argument. And the party with the solution to the deal's technical problem, Russia with its uranium custodianship offer, was rejected by America because of what it would give Russia. That is miscalculation, not Iran's, America's. What General Keane's analysis reveals about the Western analytical framework. I want to be fair to General Keane. He is a serious person. He commanded American forces. He understands military power better than most people who appear on television. His analysis of the battlefield is credible. The problem is that this conflict is not primarily a battlefield conflict. It is an economic conflict, a diplomatic conflict, and a great power positioning conflict that happens to have a battlefield dimension. And General Keane's framework, shaped by 40 years of thinking about military power projection, is optimized for analyzing the battlefield dimension while underweighting everything else. When General Keane looks at this conflict, he sees American naval superiority, Iranian military degradation, IRGC internal division, and Iranian leadership appearing confused. All of those things are real. What he does not see, because his framework does not look for it, is China's CIPS processing record volumes, Russia's uranium offer sitting in Moscow waiting for America to accept it, Iran's foreign minister loading the Oman channel that produced the JCPOA, and the Beijing summit 3 weeks away, where every party except America has been directly briefed on Iran's actual terms. Military analysts see military outcomes. This conflict's outcome will be diplomatic, And in the diplomatic dimension, the picture looks very different from what General Keane described. Iran did not miscalculate on Trump. Iran correctly predicted that Trump would escalate, that the IRGC would resist, that China would not abandon the economic architecture, that Russia would maintain its uranium offer, and that the Oman Channel would eventually be the path to resolution, just as it was in 2013. The entire diplomatic sequence of the last week, Islamabad, Muscat, Moscow, Islamabad again, is evidence of a government executing a pre-planned diplomatic strategy, not a government whose miscalculation is blowing up in its face. General Keane has it completely backwards, and the next 3 weeks between now and the Beijing summit will make that visible to anyone watching the diplomatic dimension of this conflict rather than only the battlefield. What General Keane should be watching instead. If General Keane wants to understand whether Iran has miscalculated, he should be watching 4 specific signals, not the battlefield, the diplomatic architecture. First, whether oil drops below $90 before the Beijing summit. Brent crude above $100 means traders believe the conflict continues. Brent dropping toward 90 means traders have priced in a deal coming through the Oman Channel. The market's assessment of Iran's miscalculation is visible in real time. Right now, oil is above 100. That is not a market pricing Iranian collapse. Second, whether America mentions Oman by name. The Obama administration never mentioned Oman during the 2013 back-channel process that produced the JCPOA framework. If a Trump administration official mentions Oman in the next 10 days, it means the channel has produced something. If they do not, the channel is still running privately. Either way, Oman's role is confirmed by Araghchi's meeting with Sultan Haitham, photographed and published. Third, whether Russia reconfirms the uranium custodianship offer after Araghchi's Moscow visit. If Moscow reconfirms publicly, the offer is being integrated into a framework not held in reserve. Russia reconfirming means the nuclear disposal mechanism is moving from background option to foreground element of any deal. Fourth, whether the Beijing summit produces any language referencing the Gulf crisis. A single sentence in a joint communique, even a general reference to regional stability and nuclear nonproliferation, would mean every word was pre-negotiated in Moscow and Muscat before Trump arrived. That pre-negotiation is what Iran's 4-stop diplomatic tour was building. General Keane is watching the wrong signals. The signals that tell you whether Iran miscalculated are not in the Strait of Hormuz. They are in Muscat, Moscow, and Beijing. And the signals coming from those 3 cities, a foreign minister meeting Oman's Sultan, Iran briefing Russia before returning to Pakistan, a trilateral IAEA framework built without America, do not look like a country whose miscalculation is blowing up in its face. They look like a country that knew exactly what it was doing